Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is gonna be like a super chill life update video. I have some exciting things that I'm gonna share with you guys. As the title says, I got a new job and I also recently realized some different things about my personal career goals, and I'm gonna get into all of that in this video. Fun fact, I actually already filmed this entire video, but I was wearing this cute pair of glasses and the reflection was so distracting. I couldn't upload that footage. I had to refilm it. So here we are. Second time's the charm, that's what they say, right? It's been a hot minute since I've done an update video and just like a sit down video at all. Let's get into this video, but before I do, if you're new here, hi, my name is Shani. I live in LA and I'm an actor. I'm a barista and I'm a content creator. I'm not a full-time actor yet, so I have a few side jobs. Okay, so based on the title of this video, you guys already know what this is about. I lost my job. I've had a part-time job as a barista for the past year. So that's a job I'm referencing for this video. I don't even know. Okay, let's start at the beginning. So I uploaded a video like about a year ago when I first got that job, talking about from the perspective of having social anxiety, what it was like getting hired and working at like a typical job where you clock in and out for the first time in a long time. Because for the most part, since moving to LA, I had mostly been like a freelancer and doing contract work and creative jobs and like working on film sets and stuff like that. And I still do a lot of that stuff anyway. So if you want to like go watch that video, it gives a breakdown on what the whole hiring process was and what it was like for me jumping into that new working environment and all my thoughts on that. So it's basically a year later since that video. I'm gonna try and like not make this video take forever, but I have a lot I want to say. So I was working as a barista. I never told you guys where it was. Like I featured that job in like my Hollywood work week in my life vlogs, but I never really told you guys where I was working, and I'm still not going to mention exactly where, but I will say I was a barista at a place on Sunset Boulevard, basically right next to Netflix studios and like a bunch of other studios. So a lot of our customers were like from the studios. We would have a lot of shoots in the area, and it was really in the heart of Hollywood. I really loved that job for a while. It had its downsides. It didn't pay super well. Over the year that I worked there, my hours got cut more and more just because the business wasn't really doing that well. I felt like we should have been like being paid a little bit more than we were for the responsibilities that we were given. But I did like a lot of things about it. I really liked my coworkers. I got to brush up on my barista skills. But basically, long story short, I went into work on a Thursday and my coworkers and I were basically told that we weren't going to have a job the following week. We were told that the next day, which was a Friday, was going to be our last day of work for the foreseeable future, because we were basically told that the business where we were working was going to be closing for the summer and then also for the foreseeable future. And they gave us absolutely no notice of this. Me and my coworkers really thought that that was a... I don't want to curse in this video. That was a really sucky thing for them to do. They could have handled it better. They could have given us more notice, and my coworkers and I were pretty upset about how they handled all of that. And yeah, so let's talk about what happened next. I was thrown into the world of unemployment and the job search market in Los Angeles. The day I lost my job was like June 3rd or June 4th of this year. How I felt when I was suddenly unemployed, not expecting that to happen at all. I felt frustrated with my employer. I felt scared about the future, and just it all felt so unknown. Let me just give you guys a quick breakdown of the different things I did like as soon as I became unemployed to make sure that I was gonna be okay and like taken care of, and just like safety things I did right off the bat. One, I applied for unemployment. It's important to do that right away if you become unemployed, because it is a resource out there for you. Don't feel bad about it. Don't feel weird or self-conscious. Like, everybody needs it sometimes. It's good to just do that right away though, because if you do plan on trying to get unemployment while you look for a new job, it is a bit of a process before you'll actually see any money hit your bank account. Next thing I did is, so this part-time job I had as a barista was not my only source of income at the time. How I basically schedule my life is acting is my #1 priority. It is my main career goal, and it's why I moved to Los Angeles. So how I basically schedule like my life is I was dedicating 3 days a week to that part-time barista job. My other source of income is doing freelance like background and extra work on film sets. I don't consider acting. I don't do it to help my career at all. It's literally just for money. It pays pretty well to do background and extra work in Los Angeles, especially once you're in the Actors Union, SAG-AFTRA, which I'm in. So I basically have a booking service that gets me that type of work on film and TV sets. Long story short, I have an online calendar with them and I tell them when I'm available and when I want to work. So I was dedicating 3 days a week to my part-time barista job. I was doing like 1 or 2 days a week of background or extra work on film sets, and then I was taking 1 day off typically, and then I was dedicating 1 or 2 days a week to acting career work and content creating stuff. So basically working for myself days. So back to what I was saying about things I immediately did when I lost my job. So I applied for unemployment. Second thing I did is I opened up my calendar with my booking service to basically tell them I'm suddenly like completely available for them to get me work. The next thing I did is I canceled any unnecessary monthly bills and subscriptions to basically try and bring my monthly cost of living down as much as possible while my financial situation was uncertain. And then a quick little insert on the unemployment. I guess I was unemployed for like about a month. Because I did have this additional source of income, I only ended up getting $100 in unemployment for the entire time I was unemployed. Basically, every week I was unemployed, I made too much money. It wasn't really enough money, but it was too much to get the unemployment. So I only actually ended up getting $100 one time from unemployment, which after taxes was like $90 or something. So anyway, so I was suddenly in the Los Angeles job market of summer 2022. So next thing I did was I made a list of things I wanted in my next part-time job, and I'm gonna share that list with you guys. I wanted a job that was 3 days a week, ideally between the days of Thursday and Sunday, just for different reasons. I wanted something that would pay slightly above minimum wage. I wanted a job where I would be making tips that really pads your paycheck. I wanted a job where the shifts would be 5 to 6 plus hours. I wanted to get hired somewhere in Hollywood, Silver Lake, or Echo Park. I wanted to work at a place that opened later in the day or where afternoon shifts would be available to me, because I am not a morning person. I am a night owl, and waking up early is very uncomfortable for me and I hate it. I wanted something that would be similar, where my duties and responsibilities would be similar to my last job. Those are my list of things I was looking for in a job. So what I did next was I got on Craigslist and I got on like a few other sites like Indeed. Yeah, and I started basically just applying for things that fit those requirements. I got an interview pretty quickly at a place that was a takeout burger restaurant. It didn't really fit all the requirements. I left the interview, got a call a few hours later saying that I was hired. If I wanted the job, it was mine. It didn't feel like exactly the ideal job I was looking for, but I accepted it because I wanted to start working again. So I went to day 1 of training for this job. Long story short, the training day made me realize that job was not the right fit for me and that it was not what I was looking for. It kind of helped me realize the kind of part-time job I actually wanted. And I don't think I would have realized it and have been as honest with myself if I hadn't had that experience. The job was just, it overall just felt like a robot could have been doing that job. We felt like robots on a conveyor belt. We felt like the job did not take any brain skills. Like the employees, we didn't really have any responsibilities. At my previous job, I had so much responsibility. Everyone had a station and just had to do these like repetitive tasks all day, and it was just so simple. It was like too simple. And I honestly felt like if I stayed at that job, this sounds bad, but I felt like if I stayed at that job, my brain was going to literally shrink. And I didn't want that to happen. I don't want this to sound condescending. Like, I have so much respect for anyone who works any job. I have so much respect for anyone who works at a takeout burger place, at a fast food place. It's not easy. Like, I don't want to sound condescending saying these things like, oh, a robot could do it. That's not necessarily true. It's just different aspects of it were not the right fit for me. And that's no disrespect to anyone who works in that environment. And so I left and I thought about it and I considered working there until I found something that was a better fit. But ultimately, after talking to a few different people in my life, including my partner, I realized that they as a business will probably prefer if I told them sooner rather than later that it wasn't a good fit, so that I didn't waste their time. So the next day after my training day, I did the hard thing and I picked up the phone. As someone who grew up with social anxiety, I have a lot of videos on that on my channel. I have a whole series called Social Anxiety Confessions. As someone who grew up with social anxiety, talking on the phone is one of those things that stuck around and still makes me nervous. I'm actually really proud of myself for picking up the phone to call the hiring manager and not just like sending a passive email or sending a text, because that would have been so much easier. But I wanted to do the right thing because he'd spent time on me. I went to an interview, I filled out all this new hire paperwork. I did a whole training day. I basically just said, I've realized that this isn't really the right fit for me at this time. And he said, thank you for letting me know. Your paycheck will be ready. And that was that. Rewind a little bit to a few days prior when I'd left the interview for that job. I left the interview and I went to one of my favorite laptop cafes. And I was just sitting there at that cafe kind of looking at the baristas in kind of a longing way, like knowing that that was what I wanted to be doing, working in an environment like that, in a job like that. And for some reason, looking at them, I just had this belief like I wasn't good enough for that or to work at a place like that. Anyway, fast forward to a few days in the future. After having this experience of this training day at this job, after thinking about it more and reflecting on my own passions and what I want my life to look like and what makes me happy, all these things that I was just like reflecting on, because anytime you're thrown into just like a transitional period like that, I think it does cause you to just like really think about your life and like ask these deep questions. So basically, I realized that I wanted to work as a barista in a specialty coffee shop, and that's what I wanted my part-time job to be. I already knew I was really passionate about coffee. Before I moved to LA, I actually did a barista training program in my hometown of Seattle, which they call like the coffee capital. I have a lot of passions. Not all of my passions are necessarily things I want to pursue professionally, and coffee isn't something I want to be my main full-time career or anything like that. But basically, I need to have a part-time job anyway right now. It might as well be something I'm really passionate about, I care a lot about, and that I can grow in and grow these skills to the point where in a few years I could be hired at any specialty coffee shop. I just basically realized that is where I wanted to invest those hours that I would be working at a part-time job. So I made a new list of things I wanted in a part-time job, and I'm gonna share that list with you guys. I wanted a barista job in a specialty coffee shop. I wanted a job that was 3 days a week, ideally Friday through Sunday. I wanted a job that paid slightly above minimum wage, but for the right job, I was gonna be willing to compromise. I wanted a job where I would be making tips, where the shifts would be 5 to 6+ hour shifts. And I narrowed it down from Hollywood, Silver Lake, and Echo Park to just being located in Silver Lake or Echo Park. And then lastly, I decided I would have to compromise on the time of the shifts because coffee shops open very early, 7 a.m., sometimes earlier, 6 a.m. Having that new list, I went back online and started submitting for things. I knew it wasn't going to be easy. Though I have some barista training experience and I have some barista experience, I didn't have a ton of barista experience at the time, and I didn't have any barista experience in a specialty setting. I went online and started submitting for any jobs that would pop up that were barista positions at a specialty coffee shop. But also what I did was I made a list of my top 5 like dream coffee shops that I wanted to work at, and then I went on their websites and I basically applied to them directly, and then I called them and I asked when their hiring managers would be in, and I did a few like resume drop-offs and like introduced myself and things like that. I noticed a few challenges right off the bat when submitting for these barista jobs. They wanted baristas who had a certain amount of years of experience that I did not have. A lot of these job postings wanted a barista who could do latte art. I could not do latte art. It was a skill I was very confident that I would be able to learn with more practice and a little bit of mentorship, but it wasn't a skill I had. Didn't get a huge amount of interviews, but I got a few. I got actually invited to an interview at one of my top 5, but there was a scheduling conflict with a shoot that I had. They basically had a group interview on this one day at this specific time window, and I couldn't make that one time, and it just felt so frustrating. But I went to 4 interviews. The first interview was, it's kind of a smaller business, but it's a chain in Los Angeles. I went to an interview for this place and it was one of the most extensive interviews I've ever been to. I went to like their corporate office. They asked so many questions. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? How do you see yourself growing within this company? Tell us about yourself. What's your experience? If you were stranded on a desert island and you could only bring one book, music CD, or movie, what would it be? And it was a long interview and I did not get that job. I didn't really love the way they told me either. Like the rejection email was, we're not gonna be moving forward with your application. Okay, that sounds so normal now that I'm saying it out loud, but I don't know why I was offended. Anyway, like whatever, like, okay. Also, that was like an open interview window. It was like a 3-hour window and there were like 6 other people there at the exact time I showed up. And they were only hiring for one barista position at the location I wanted, so there was competition. I went to another interview, I'll skip that one. Fast forward to a few weeks into the job search. I'm starting to get a little discouraged. I'm submitting for a lot of things. I'm not getting too many interviews. I've gone to a few interviews at this point. I haven't gotten a job offer. I'm starting to get discouraged because, you know, as time passes, I need a new part-time job. I was getting stressed to the point where even though I had extra time now to like work on other things, like to put more time into my acting and my content creating, I couldn't even work on those things because I was too stressed about the job search. At this point, I saw a job listing pop up that didn't quite fit all of my requirements, but I applied for it anyway. And I was starting to feel like maybe this isn't gonna work out exactly like I want it to. I might just have to take this job. That isn't ideal. So I applied for this job and I got an interview for the next day. Something interesting happened though. The same day I was setting up this interview for this job I didn't really want, I saw another job posting pop up for a barista position at a specialty coffee shop, and it fit all of my requirements, all of them. And it seemed extra special because it was in this business that was growing in these different ways. Like it was a coffee shop, it was a specialty coffee shop, but they were going to be kind of expanding within the same space to also be a restaurant and a cocktail bar. And it was a small business and it was queer owned and POC owned. All these different like little details just made it seem like such a cool job opportunity, and it got me really excited. So I applied and I didn't hear back, and you know, I was very interested. So I found them on Instagram and I started just like peeking around at the business. And I watched their story and I saw that on their Instagram story, they posted that they were hiring just as they posted on the job site. So I responded to their story and I DM'd them and I said, you know, I emailed my resume over and blah, 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 and I'm very interested. And they wrote back to me and basically said, oh yeah, we got your email, didn't see your resume in it. So basically like, in my email to them about the job, I forgot to attach my resume. Of course I would, this one time. Anyway, they invited me to interview. So now I had 2 interviews the next day. One for a job I didn't really want, and another right after for this job that seemed very cool. Okay, so fast forward to the next day. I am gonna tell you guys about the first interview because I think it's hilarious. So the first interview, I'd basically be working front of house as a cashier, barista, also making smoothies, a lot of other types of drinks, sometimes coffee, not specialty coffee. I would also be like running food, packing takeout orders, and things like that. The interview was so weird, guys. I was interviewed by the owner. Basically, I had to keep steering the conversation back to the job because she kept like talking about other things that were completely unrelated to the job. And she also shared these just random personal details about her life and about her past. It was just definitely oversharing. Part of me was like, okay, is this maybe a bonding technique that she uses? Is she trying to gain my trust? Is she trying to gain empathy? She was telling me about her marriage and how ways that her husband just wasn't contributing to the relationship. Like he wasn't working, but he also wasn't a stay-at-home dad and like really doing anything. She told me about like this crazy situation that happened where she was doing another interview and apparently a homeless lady came and like grabbed her hair and dragged her down the street, which just sounded so crazy to me, that something like that would just happen. But it just it just was a weird interview, and her phone kept buzzing and she was like pushing it away. She said something like she was scared to look at it because one of her employees like walked off the job. They were trying to find out if they were fired or not, and she just didn't want to deal with it. A ton of red flags basically for her as a boss. I talked to my girlfriend about this interview later and she was like, oh no, you definitely don't want to work there if that's how the interview went. My girlfriend was so right. Like, those were just red flags, like after red flag after red flag. But like I said, I was reaching this point of desperation, and this job did pay above minimum wage. She basically offered me the job after the interview ended, and I told her I had to think about it. And then I went to my next interview, and this is the interview that changed everything. I arrived, I met with the coffee manager. The interview went really well. It's hard to even explain in words, but like for the entire interview, I just had the strongest feeling like things were just like in alignment, or like falling into place, or like just something about that moment was written for me before it even happened, or like I was meant to be there for some reason. It's really hard to explain, but I just had this tangible feeling of like, this is one of those moments that is really special. And there was this energy in the interview, and like the coffee manager had an energy too. Like, he just had so much excitement describing the job to me, and like I feel like we really connected. Different aspects of the job that would have been like downsides to someone else were upsides to me, like how it's a growing business and employees were gonna have to like all figure out some things together as they grow, about like logistically how are different things gonna work. And that was fine with me, and that was exciting to me, the idea of being a part of a brand new restaurant. It was a small business, and hearing about the whole story and the whole origin story of the business and how the owners got started, the story of the coffee that they specifically use, and just hearing about all the details of the business got me so excited. And it was actually an upside that I didn't have a lot of experience in specialty coffee, because they like training people and not necessarily getting employees that have like all this training somewhere else. It was fine that I didn't know latte art. They were willing to teach that. It seemed like the job was going to be really challenging. It didn't seem like it was going to be easy at all. It seemed like it was going to be a lot for me to learn, from the drink recipes to their different practices as baristas, the whole dialing in process, which is like a specialty coffee thing that I'd literally been wanting to learn. It seemed like it was going to be really hard in these ways, and a challenge. That is what excited me. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted a job where I was going to show up and it was going to be hard, but it was going to be worth it, because it was a skill that I was passionate about growing and getting better at. So I left the interview really wanting the job. As I left, I made sure to say only once to the manager, I would love to work here. And then I left, and I was just on such a high. I was also scared, because like, if I felt this strongly about this job, I didn't feel like I would ever have that feeling again about another barista job, and so that scared me. The last thing I did, just to make sure I stood out, I sent a follow-up email, and I will share that follow-up email with you guys. The email contact I'd originally had was with one of the owners, so he's who I sent the email to. I'm gonna leave names out, so I'll just say so-and-so instead of saying a name. I said, "Hi, so-and-so. I wanted to thank you for bringing me in for an interview today. I loved getting to learn more about," insert business name there, "and all of the exciting things to come with the new restaurant opening soon. The excitement and energy that so-and-so had when describing the job and the company's story and values was contagious." Smiley face. I couldn't help but feel excited as I left about the possibility of working there. It's a team and company I would feel honored to be a part of. Thank you again for considering me for the barista position. Kind regards, Shani Drake. And that is what I said. And I actually heard back from the owner, and he said, "Hi Shani, thank you for the follow-up email. I'm so glad you enjoyed your time here. I heard great things about your interview with so-and-so. You will definitely be hearing from him by end of day tomorrow. Have a great evening." And guys, the next day, I got a call from the coffee manager who interviewed me, and told me that if I was still interested, the job was mine. So I got the job, guys. And when I got that phone call, that was one of the happiest moments I've had in a long time. Like, it really stands out as such a happy moment for me, because I wanted it so bad. I was just so happy. And guys, that is basically the story of how I lost my job and got hired at my dream part-time job. I hope that you guys enjoyed like hearing this story. Lastly, I have a few ending words for anyone who is currently on the job search. First, you are worthy of working a job you like or enjoy at least a little bit, but most importantly, that you don't hate, one that you don't literally despise the thought of showing up to every day, and one that doesn't make you dread getting out of bed in the morning. Like, you are worthy of working a job you like. Secondly, you deserve to be happy at your job. Third, having a list of things you want in a job is really important. Know what you will and won't compromise on, because you'll be put in different situations, asked different questions, and you just have to be ready, and you have to know that stuff ahead of time. Lastly, you'll know in your gut if something isn't the right fit. And I also think that you'll probably know in your gut if it is the right fit. On that note, I'm gonna end this video. Guys, please give this video a thumbs up if you did enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not subscribed already. Hit the notifications bell if you want to be notified when I upload a new video, because I don't have a regular upload schedule. So one way of knowing whenever I upload is by hitting the notifications bell, and basically you'll just get a little notification. I actually just finished filming a work week in my life where I bring you guys along for an acting job that I did, acting in a film, a few auditions, and then a few work days at my new barista job. So yeah.